Cool. Welcome to episode 76 of the PHP Town Hall. Let's be frank. Talking today with a really good friend from over the ocean. I haven't seen him in like 5 years because the last time I saw you was at the very first conference I ever went to. But we're joined today by Frank de Jonge, de facto face of the PHP League. Frank, how's it going?
Hey, everything's fine over here. Yeah, it's been a while. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was Sunshine 2015, I think it was.
I think so. Yeah, it was definitely Sunshine PHP. Let's see who else was. I think Gary was there.
Gary was there. It's the one I got called a hobbit at. So
yeah, that thing happens as well.
Yeah, but it's cool because I still look like a hobbit. So nothing's new there. And of course, you got Ben. Did what?
A handsome one.
Oh, I'll pay you for that one later. Ben, how's it going?
Oh, it's good, man. Moved into my apartment down here. Things are pretty stable. I have my my office set up, so hopefully my audio is better than last time.
Oh, that's right. You're back in Alabama now.
Georgia, but close.
It's all the same thing down there. I can say I actually used to live there, kind of.
Sure. Yeah, so thanks for joining us, Frank. Happy birthday.
That's been a while.
I wanted to say that, but I didn't know if it would just utterly piss you off or not.
No, I don't know. I'm fine. It's like I do have to say there was a year where I think not a week would go by without me being congratulated on every medium by people that I did not know, because other people that do know me congratulated me on Twitter, and other people were just being polite. So then
it's like a snowball. Like you get a couple, and then you just get 20.
Yep. That's totally it. Yeah.
I don't know how to say his name. I think it's Sishan, Wire Hacksmith on Twitter. I'm almost surprised he didn't just write a little bot to just continually hit you on your every day on a happy birthday.
Case Young is definitely one of the people that has often pulled this prank on me. Yeah, I think him and Scoop are probably in the top tier of birthday prankers.
He's very much a troll. He's a very quiet troll, but when he trolls people, you know it's going to be good.
Oh yeah, he's apart from his trolling, he's just a super immensely big, tall, but super friendly dude. So yeah.
So I mean, for Ben and I, that's kind of hard because we're so short. So having someone so tall like that is, for me, I think I'm going to be attacked. And then usually it's the same thing with Grumpy Programmer. When he sees me and I'm breaking my neck to look up to him, and then he gives me a bear hug, and I'm just right in the middle of his chest, and it's all gross.
Yeah,
that's the joys being short.
So I don't know what my size is in feet, but I'm 185-ish. So that you probably know what that is in whatever you.
If I remember correctly, you're taller than me, but everyone is. But you weren't too tall. You were.
I'm not.
I wasn't breaking my neck looking at you.
That's true.
Which is all I really care about.
I'm 6 foot, close to 1.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad. But when I'm close to Case Young, that's he's the kind of tall where if you haven't been around him for a bit and then you see him again, you are reminded that he's so damn tall. Yeah.
Or if you sit next to me, you're reminded how tall you are too, because yeah, it's great. It's awesome. So anyways, to actually talk about some PHP stuff and give our 5 listeners, something interesting. I think the big thing, so Fly System 2.0 just came out, didn't it? Or it's coming very close to being general availability.
Yep. So we're in the beta stage right now. So a while ago, I started releasing alphas to get some feedback on the design, just the general gist of it. That went pretty well. Had a lot of interactions with Laravel PHP people, especially Dries, who gave a really thorough look and also already went ahead and made sure that Laravel is okay with the upgrades, and actually did the upgrades. It's not yet landed because it's not yet out, like in the final stage. But that should be done relatively soon. So I'm guessing somewhere this month 2.0.0 will hit. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. It's been a long time coming, and put in a lot of hours, and I think it's going to be great. But in the end, of course, the download counter will be the end all on this success. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I mean, so it's so integrated with Laravel. I mean, so when you started writing 2.0, when you're trying to make architectural changes and things like that, were you thinking just in terms of your own architecture and fly system, or were you also trying to keep in mind how these changes may affect the Laravel integration with it, or Symfony or something like that? Like how does that kind of play out with such, like, I mean, a lot of your downloads are coming just straight from Laravel projects and stuff like that. So it's got to be a huge weight on your shoulders almost.
So in a way, like I'm glad that I can contribute to a bit of the success there. It's like, I'm not saying that I'm a big part of the success of Laravel, but it's one of the features that I think people really like to use in Laravel, so that they can just switch file systems around just based on configuration, really. So it does really influence how I look at things. But I think the general idea of fly system hasn't changed. I think 2.0 is mostly about some developer heuristics that, or developer experience rather, and that's a topic that the Laravel people are passionate about themselves. So that's not something that I really would expect them to not like. And all in all, it's just sort of in a way, a simplified version that's more streamlined. So I'm guessing they will have not a lot of objections with this. And they looked at it, and I discussed these things and try to communicate as early as possible with them, also to get that feedback up front, so that I don't release a version that they're like, yeah, let's not go with this, right? It's like, it's definitely in the best interest of the library if it's still adopted by Laravel, for sure. Yeah.
What type of user experience things did you look for, or did you modify?
So there were a couple of things that were in the original fly system design, and that I didn't really like. And also when you integrate against it, that is kind of cumbersome. So for example, if you want to write, you can get a return value that says false, and then it failed. But you could also get an exception if something else failed. And so what would happen if you consume this library, then you have to account for two unhappy paths. So that's a bit, people don't expect that. People want things to be as simple as they can be. To have one mechanism through which you communicate errors is then better than having two. So that's one of the simplifications that we did. Some other parts is just the way that exceptions themselves were structured. There was not really a structure around it. They were not really related to the actions that you performed. So now every action that you perform on a file system has a corresponding exception. So if you are writing a file and it fails, then you get a unable to write file exception, which is dead obvious, like there's no room for interpretation anymore there, what's going on, and everybody can reason about this fairly easily. So that's one of the things. The other one is directory listings. People liked the fact that you had directory listings that worked the same way regardless of what kind of file system that you use. But something that they didn't generally like was the array structure that was underneath it. So basically, you would just get plain arrays with keys, and sometimes you got something more, and sometimes you got something less. And all the adapters had an array response for everything you did for caching purposes, something that was rarely used effectively. So there was an overkill in communication, and in some parts there was under-communicated. So we made sure that directory listings and stuff like that now just have normal interfaces and normal value objects that you get back. So you get type safety, you get type hinting, you get IDE support, and with that you get a lot of things on top of that as well. All the directory listings are now based on generators, which if you look at certain types of file systems, you actually paginate over certain responses. But now you just stream that back to when you consume it. While before, all those paginated responses would be formatted and then would be accumulated all in one place. You would consume a huge amount of memory, and then you would be able to consume it. So now if you have a very large directory that you need to iterate over, it's just streaming. So in that part, it's just a lot better for the user experience. And the last thing is that the API, especially for the writing side of things, if you want to write a file, it's heavily simplified now. You just have one method that says write, and one for stream that is write stream. But there's no more update, and there's no more put that basically said, well, I want to force things. Previously, what happened was if you wrote something, the file system would first see, hey, is it there? And if not, then it would be okay if it was a write, and it would be rejected if it was an update. And the same mechanism would work reversed for updates. So there was a lot of checking, while these days we use a lot of cloud file systems, and those kind of heuristics are mostly just like file put contents. You just call the function, and whether the file is there or not, it's overwritten. So these are really things that just make it a lot easier to reason about code, because all of the calls from Fly system are now deterministic in nature. So that's, if I didn't forget anything, I think that's pretty much the gist of it.
That sounds like some really good additions or changes. So with that, how did you approach backwards compatibility with V1? Did you just drop it completely, or are you doing a certain kind of trade-off comparison there?
So what's the, I thought to myself, what is the value of having a major version upgrade without really breaking with the things that annoyed me in the first place? Like, I started working on Fly system in 2013. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And so these these bugs just some things about the design just bugged me, and you experience that over and over and over. And that's just something like, I'm the sole maintainer of this. If you look at the contribution stats, like, there's some patches here and there, but like 90 or 98% of all the commits are mine, I guess. So it's also about my developer happiness, I'd say. Since nobody's fixing FTP issues, that's for sure. That's all on me.
What? That sounds so exciting.
So I was in 2013. FTP was actually one of the first use cases that I created Fly system for, And I was naive enough to think that I could just write this library and then I'd never have to deal with FTP code ever again. Well, joke's on me, because like the majority of my time is actually spent on FTP, because FTP is not really file transfer protocol. It's more like fudge that protocol. It's there's nothing standardized.
It's not a protocol at all, huh?
No, it's like if you have like I won't even bore you with with the details, but it's like these days now I just run everything against Dockerized FTP servers. Everything is integration tested, so I know stuff works. The only thing that I can't be really bothered with supporting anymore is FTP servers on Windows machines, which is something that even the old thing would support. But like these days, like who even uses those anymore? Like probably a bunch of people, but I can't be bothered because there's no way for me to test all this stuff, right? I can deal with FTPD and other types of SFTP servers. There's a bunch of containers that I can use for testing that stuff. But Windows FTP, it's like, yeah, I'd rather not.
Well, I think like, Joe Ferguson, who maintains Homestead, I think he gets a lot of Windows resources gifted to him in some sort of fashion. So if you really wanted to, I'm sure there's a way for you to get all these resources. Your face says no.
So my face says maybe if people pay me. So for these kind of things, like I'm always willing to do more. But either I have to help a bunch of people, but with the FTP Windows stuff, I know I'm just doing it for 6 developers somewhere who probably make a bunch of money off of it, because dealing with legacy stuff is quite well paid, right? So, but then I'm fixing the stuff. So, cut me in.
I mean, so speaking of that, though, like, if there's one thing I've noticed about the Laravel community versus the rest of the PHP community is that they figured out really fast how to monetize the whole GitHub sponsor thing. And also, like, to a degree, they seem to be more receptive to when, like, community members write books or put out a course or something like that, whereas, like, the greater PHP community doesn't seem to want to jump in as fast and as much into that kind of stuff. Like, have you had much luck with all of your open source stuff that you contribute, and also with like the GitHub sponsors program? Has that worked out for you, or are you just kind of letting it be?
So first of all, I must say that I am absolutely impressed with the Laravel PHP community and how they managed to pull this off. It's like also the people from Tailwind, like, wow, that's impressive. It's intimidating. Like I see the stuff that they get, and I have to be honest. Like sometimes I wonder, it's like I must be doing something wrong. I must not have a certain skill that they have, and they're like, that's fine too, right? I'm good at certain things, and too bad they're not commercially interesting. But like for myself, I've got Taylor sponsors me via GitHub sponsors, so that's awesome. The people from JetBrains sponsor me as well. I know some cool people like Erica Heidi sponsor me as well, so that's also pretty cool. But I think I've got like 20 sponsors, and if you live in the Netherlands, then pretty much 52% of everything you get from GitHub sponsors goes to the government. So the Dutch government makes more out of GitHub sponsors than I do. So I bet they like the free money. But yeah, for me, it's like I appreciate it very much, and like I always make a habit of thanking everybody who starts supporting me personally, because I do value it a lot. But it's not like I can make a living out of this or even work less, because it's just not comparable.
I mean, that'd be the dream, is get enough money so you don't have to like have a paid job and just do open source software. Or maybe that's my dream. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of fun.
I would
but
love it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty freaking cool. Like, I mean, and like you said, like seeing the Tailwind project just take off like it did. And same thing like with Caleb Porzio's stuff. The way he's managed to monetize it so fast is just truly cool. But I'm with you. Like, I see their stuff and I see what they're doing, and at the same time, I'm just like, I must be missing that gene or that neuron in my brain, because all my ideas, I'm like, it's never gonna work. It's never gonna, like, I can't figure out how that works. Like, someone should teach a master class on how to come up with worthwhile monetized products. There's an idea. So I'm gonna take that. Ben, you do it.
What I'm guessing is
think the key
course. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Frank.
I'm guessing we need a course in not shutting down our own ideas, maybe, because that might be it.
I mean, at the same time, though, like as you said earlier, you know, like there's only so many hours in a day, and I have a dog that I have to play with, and there's tons of cookies I need to eat and bikes to ride. And so at the end of the day, it's like, well, I mean, I don't want to look at a computer for 23 hours, you know. So
yeah. I still look at it for a fair amount of time, but
right. I mean, like it's also how I troll other people, is by being on the computer. If I'm not on the computer, I'm not trolling, and you know, my motto is always be trolling. So gotta work on that.
Too, like, with a lot of things, once I try to make money off it, I don't enjoy it the same way. So like if I'm doing open source for fun, it's almost better to not try to monetize it, because then it feels like a job.
Yeah, well, so like I had a Patreon before, and when things get rough around open source, because you know, like open source is fun and gratifying, but it can also be very frustrating and in a weird way sort of lonely, where you're just doing everything by yourself. And like from a feedback loop perspective, it is very hard to get into a feedback loop with open source of people who enjoy your stuff. So I will gaze at my downloads counter, and that's like, it's like a little trigger for dopamine, but it's like, that's a self-induced thing, and I'm really aware of that. And you know that people generally have negative trigger bias. So people who will be negatively impacted by something will generally be a lot more likely to reach out to you and give you shit on the internet than people will reach out to you and say thank you. So I'm very lucky that a lot of the issues that I close them mostly by educating the people around how they should view a problem and how they should approach it. And I think that's really gratifying, because they mostly walk away with having learned something, and they thank me for it. So that's quite nice. But yeah, sometimes you also don't have the like mental capacity or the mental space to get into that mindset where you want to help somebody out necessarily.
Yeah, it's like with my open source work, sometimes I'll just not look at it for a week or two, right? And I feel a little guilt with that, but I don't feel nearly the same amount of guilt I would feel if that was something I was being paid for.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I've somewhere last year, I think for half a year or so, I only did the bare minimum for Fly System and all of my open source stuff. And then I had a Patreon, but yeah, then I quit it for that reason. I was like, yeah, I'm done with it, because you know, I would even get people who weren't supporting me say, well, you're getting paid for it, now you need to do the work. And it's like, what? Yeah. Entitled pricks. It's like,
I mean, that's definitely true, though. I mean, everyone wants the work that you or any other open source maintainer is going to produce. But then when you mention like, hey, it'd be nice to have a coffee or a beer, they manage to hide or, just disappear from the face of the earth. And speaking of things disappearing from the earth, the other thing that we want to talk about was how you've kind of became the de facto face of the PHP League. Because kind of like what you said a little bit ago, it kind of goes through like ebbs and flows where like things are very kind of out in the open and being worked on. Like you see like fly systems being worked on, Fractal whenever I cannot be lazy, and Corvin tells me to do things. But like, Phil started a project. Phil did Phil things. Phil is now trying to save the world. Godspeed to him. But now, like, when I think of the PHP League, like, you seem to be the most active maintainer. You seem to be the one that's really kind of out there. Common Mark is another big one, but it's really you. Like, do you kind of get that sense of like being a leader of the league, or is it just like, was that something you kind of naturally stepped into, or is it just because all the other projects are kind of at like a good stopping point and yours just can keep being updated over time?
Yeah, so we've had a couple projects that changed maintainers. So I often help the transition from one maintainer to another. And then after a while, we formed sort of internally, we've got a leadership team, and so that manages this. And I think I'm the only one active in the leadership team as well. I just do the work, I guess, and that's by just doing the work and just always being there to do that stuff, you sort of naturally grow into that position where people view it that way. I don't think it's necessarily true that I can empathize with the idea that people view me maybe as the de facto face of the league. But yeah, it's I can definitely see people thinking that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I mean, like, for people who don't know, like, what is the process for the league to take over a package? Like, if let's like, I think what was it? Carbon was a big one a couple years ago when Brian Nesbot kind of stepped back, and there's kind of like a lurch of like, what's going to happen to this library that so many projects rely on? Like, how would one go about getting a package into the league's maintainership?
So to get your package into the leads, we were not really like, there's not an application form for, hey, I want my package in the lead, although I do get a fair amount of requests of people that basically want to mooch off the reputation that the league has. And I can get behind that idea, but yeah, we're not going to go for that. It's not some free publicity platform. So we've basically come to terms with keeping it more or less the same as it is now in terms of packages. If there are high-profile packages that are looking to transfer maintenance, then we can accommodate that. We've got a solid track record in adopting packages, making sure that we have a not so super formal, but somewhat informal process around making sure that we get a maintainer involved that's actually responsible. So we don't do this stuff overnight. That's one. If people want to maintain and they have no contribution record, yeah, that's not going to fly. So people need to work on it for the time being. If the original maintainer is not there anymore to maintain it, I will even make sure that I do the code reviews, I will do the releases, I will do the security reviews, I will do the whole lot to give people the time to build up a track record. And so once that track record is built and people have shown that they are committed enough and have enough ethics in open source, then they can join and they can maintain one of the projects. So again, not really a official process, but and it's basically a description of how I am winging it in the best way I think I can.
It is good that you require people to be contributors first, right? Because that's one mistake personally I've made, Ethan, right? Like, oh, I'd love to maintain this. And then a month in, I haven't done anything with it. And I'm like, oh, I need to find a new maintainer already.
Yeah. Well, it's not the first time a project has tipped over and burned because of that, right? Like there have been a number of packages that switch maintainers, somebody lost interest, and then now it's orphaned, and effectively through the absence of somebody, it's taken the project hostile. And of course, we say in open source, well, you can always fork it, but like, how many times do you see that go successfully, especially in the PHP world? It's slim to none, so I don't think it's realistic. So I do get it, because open source burnout is a real thing, and like, you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders when you maintain a package like that, and almost no support system. So when people see an easy way out, they take it. And to be frank, I can't blame anybody for that, because like, I get it. Yeah. So, but because open source is not an easy world to operate in, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that. It's like people often look at people like Taylor Otwell and Fabian, and they go like they look at tiny incidents of how they responded in a certain on a certain issue, or if they lashed out on Twitter one time, and then they just focus on that one incident, but they don't see like the shitstorm that they have to endure every day, and then still wake up the next day and say, well, I'm gonna work to support these people. It's like people forget that so easily, but it's like, I never knew as well, right? You just have to sort of trust the people who go through this, and trust and listen to their experiences, and then trust it, basically.
I mean, I think you bring up a good point there with like how one little interaction on Twitter or something like that can just completely change how people look at the open source maintainers. I mean, especially the Laravel community. I mean, so we forgot to tell you, basically for 45 minutes was shit all over Laravel, and then I go back to writing Laravel code for my day job. So we'll send those guidelines out next time. But, like, everyone loves to find like that one hot take from Taylor and blow it completely out of proportion, and then 2 days later basically bitch and ask about where a feature that they've been wanting forever and ever and ever is. And, sometimes I love his response of like, are you going to write it? No. Well, then, it's on to you. If you want it, you can write it, and then we can consider bringing it in, kind of thing. So, I think a lot of people, like you said, think open source maintaining is really cool until you realize that, like, you're going to spend a Saturday writing code, you're going to spend a Sunday writing code, you're going to spend a Friday night writing code. You're going to go out with friends, and you're going to get message like, hey, there's a bug in your package. And it's like, well, you got to go take care of it. So it's not as glamorous as it is, but it is worthwhile as long as you can be involved with the right people. Especially like someone like, or not someone, but like a group like the League, where you have a ton of great maintainers and developers who are there to help each other out versus, kill each other.
Yeah. So yeah, in a way, we're open source maintainers, not so anonymous. I guess it's like it's sort of a support group in itself. Yeah, like I definitely have sometimes when an issue is opened and there's like why is this bug not fixed? This is not professional. This is stupid software, and you did a terrible job. Yeah, and sometimes even like you don't want to rage back in public, because that also makes you look bad, and people will not appreciate you for that. Also, like, I generally just want to be a nice person, so but then I can rant to friends. I know Ross Tuck is a buddy of mine, and I often send him issues and like, hey, am I an idiot here, or is this person being a total asshole? And then he will give me the sort of response thermometer first, and then I will respond after.
I remember there was a thing, like, I did the company I worked for a while ago, Sebastian Bergman was one of the contractors we would bring in. And I remember he was he wasn't complaining, he was just venting to Arna or Stefan, one of them, about issues on GitHub, about like being like pointless issues. And he's like, oh wait, this one's from Ben Ramsey, so I know it's at least somewhat legitimate. And it's like, like, I think, like, if you open an issue on Fractal, or if Ben opened an issue on Fractal, I'll be like, well, that's a legitimate issue. But like, when other people do it, I kind of do the same thing. Like, I'll send it to Corvin, or I'll send it to someone else and be like, is this like a thing, or am I missing it, or are they just not using the software the intended way? So it's good you have that kind of soundboard as well.
Yeah, but it's also like the most important thing that you need to have for fixing an issue is understanding of what the problem is. Like, if you look at all the issues being opened on open source projects, the majority is pointing at code saying this should do something else, and that is then a solution to an issue that they don't explain. So if you have to maintain something and you have to have ownership over this code afterwards, if you do not know what kind of use case you are supporting, then you cannot effectively maintain it, because you can't act responsibly in accordance with that use case anymore. So it's like, maybe it's a little philosophical, but in terms of responsible ownership over these public domain things, you kind of need to have that sort of mindset. It's not just code. It's a gazillion use cases that you're supporting.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes total sense. I was just looking on the Fly System repo, so you only have it down to one issue, which I have to say is pretty impressive for a project with 119 million downloads. I mean, how hard was it to get down to just one open issue after 7 years of active work on this project? That's the way to do it.
Sorry?
Just select all, delete, move on. Yeah.
I think, didn't Taylor do that once?
I mean, sometimes you should. Like, I do it with my email every once in a while. I just delete everything, and then if it's important, people will email me back. If it's not, then it is what it is.
I guess we should have a term for that. And if I were to coin it, I would call it like GitHub issue bankruptcy. Because
that's pretty good. We should make that a thing.
Yeah.
You can do that with your bills too, Matt.
My what?
Your bills.
No, I'm busy that day.
So I am pretty liberate at closing if I think it's closed. Like, for the majority of issues that remain open, it's people just not responding. And so I don't always respond timely, not always, because there's only so many hours in the day. But I will leave a comment, leave it open with questions, and then if a month goes by and there's no response, then I guess it was not an issue, because most of the time that's the case. And often when I get an issue and I know what's the problem is on the other end of the interaction, then I will supply them the solution and close the issue. And often I will make sure that I amend the docs to also explain these kind of cases. So, for example, there's a section on deterministic programming is that here? I'm trying to look it up as we go. Yeah, deterministic code. There's a section in the docs about deterministic code, because in a lot of cases people were using it in a weird way, and I was like, okay, you need to understand this concept, and if you do, then I will probably get less support. So I do support-driven documentation creation. I guess that should also be a thing.
I think that should really be the term you come up with, is support-driven documentation, since that is such a thing that lacks. Because like no one ever updates their docs, but they always like patch issues, and then when the code is out there, then they're like, well, we fixed it, but we never updated our docs, which is such a problem. But I think and then the other thing that you have going for you too is event sauce. Is that which I know like kind of took Twitter by storm last year. How is that going?
So in terms of by storm, in comparison to everything in relation with Fly System, it does not compare. Like, it's got a little bit more than 60,000 downloads right now. I'm working on v1.0.0, which is also due to come out in the next, I think, 2 months, maybe sooner, because I'm using it more at work right now. But the audience is a lot, like the target audience is a lot smaller. I do think that the more we go into serious applications, the more event sourcing itself as a technique will become more relevant to PHP at large. But I think the rest of the space where PHP is dominating far exceeds that. So the success of Fly System has always baffled me, because like I do some calculations, and like out of every package ever downloaded, 1 in 140 was written by me, and the bulk of that is Fly System. So it just can't compare. But also, like, my reference is pretty skewed, right? Other people would maybe already, if they've got a steady amount of downloads that go to 60K, they would be over the moon. And 60K is like, what, a day's worth of Fly System, maybe? So yeah, this. Oh no, wait, that's a day's worth is 200,000 for Fly System. So every day I do more Fly System downloads than all of Event Sauce combined.
I hate to say it, I think some of those Fly System downloads are from when I have an idea and I compose or install Laravel, and then the project just dies. So I'm definitely inflating your numbers, is the point I'm trying to make.
How many of those 200,000 a day do you think you are? Then we know how many ideas a day you have.
Probably more than I want to let on, because none of those ideas come to fruition, because once I get going, I'm like, this is not a good idea.
Yeah. Now with Event Sauce, Event Sauce is, I think, the best code in open source PHP land that I've written. It is the tiniest thing, and it's super powerful, it's super flexible. And to people that are working in the space, I get a lot of positive feedback. So I've also discussed it with other event sourcing framework maintainers, and they seem to really like the design. I had a lot of help from people like Marijn Huizenveld and Ross Tuck to challenge some of this design decisions that I made, and it is almost done. I'm already working on V1, but then it's sort of complete. It's got everything it needs. It would be cool if there was a little more usage, but I'm happy with the way that's progressing. And if anything, I wasn't expecting to hit the lottery and downloads twice. It's also just really fun to work with. Like event sourcing is such a fun way to model software. It's when I did it at first I didn't understand it at all, and then I worked together with some very bright minds who that I just trusted for a while, that the things that they told me to do was smart. And then you experience it for a while, and then you're like, oh, wow, this, like, it feels like cheating now. It's like the other stuff, like doing CRUD-based complex process modeling, is just so incredibly difficult. And then you do it in event sourcing, and it feels like you're cheating life. So yeah, I can only recommend putting that tool in your toolbox.
Nice. Have you debated bringing event sauce into the league, or is it not a good fit because it's not just a library?
Yeah. So I never really considered it. It always felt to me like it's a very different kind of library. So the PHP League seems to be very much utility based. It's stuff that you use and not stuff that shapes you or in any way. It's not framework-esque, as one might say. Not that event sauce is that, but it's really like a very different non-mainstream school of thought. So it felt like having its own space in the world would be a better fit. And also, like, I like creating a project with a little bit of branding. Like, I did the fly system stuff in a different style as I did the normal PHP League stuff as well. I created a little logo and did the same for event sauce. One of the first sketches was actually that thing, but then on a sort of cartoon style ketchup bottle with event sauce there. But, like, I'm not good enough of a designer to pull that off, although my degree suggests otherwise. That's actually a degree for multimedia design, which I suck at. So it's better for me to write code.
Well, you passed, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's that's been a while. It's like 10 years back since I've done that. But like, I think it's gratifying to create these little logos because, I think in a way, like Fly System has a bit of a punny name. Event Sauce has a bit of a punny name. Like, I am a huge fan of like my the people around me fear the day that I become a dad, because then my dad joke amount will just go through the roof. So
you're like, I've been practicing for this for years.
It's like if my girlfriend comes to me and says, "Hi, I'm pregnant." Well, you know the joke. I'm not even going to repeat it. Well, my response will be, "Hi, pregnant, I'm dad." So.
Well, yeah. On that note, I think we should end this.
We're out.
Seriously.
No, thank you so much, Frank.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a great chat. Really appreciate learning about your thinking behind all this.
Yeah, no worries. Always happy.
Yeah, it's great catching up with you.
Yeah, great to catch up with you too, and it was really nice chatting to you. This evening.
So real quick before we go, if people don't know where to find you online, Frank, where can they find you at?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter as at Frank de Jonge, which is. Do you have show notes or something like that? Because the link might be easier than people figuring out how to spell de Jonge.
Oh, so that's how you say it.
Can we just take a second to appreciate how bad Matt fucked up your name?
I've made a habit not to call people out on it anymore. Like I've been called de Jonge, de Jonge, like everything in between. It's like,
all right. To be fair, I was not that bad.
That's
not
very
that
true.
bad. So okay, yeah. But I definitely fucked it up.
Oh yeah, you definitely did.
No, we'll throw it into. I know how to spell it. We'll throw it in the show notes, so that way if people have questions or anything like that, they know how to find you. I think you have like what 5,000 million Twitter followers or something. So I think everyone knows where to find you.
Much. I think it's like 8K.
I mean, just a cool 8,000.
A cool 8,000. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Frank. We appreciate it. We'll catch you later.
Yeah. See you. All right. Bye.